Okay, I think we are ready to start. Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to you all and everyone who joined us today for our webinar on advancing gender sensitization across industries. My name is Sameen Akhund, and I am the Sustainability Manager here at CERB, and I'll be the moderator today. For those who don't know about PBC and Pakistan Business Council and CERB, let me do a very quick introduction so that we can move on with the more exciting discussion that we have for today. The Pakistan Business Council is a business policy advocacy platform representing leading businesses in Pakistan across different sectors of the economy. It's comprised of the largest private sector employers and investors. The primary mission behind PBC's initiative is to improve general business environment in Pakistan. The Center of Excellence in Responsible Business, better known as CERB, is an outreach initiative of the Pakistan Business Council, which aims at facilitating businesses and achieving their sustainability goals through advocacy, capacity building, and promoting sustainable and responsible business practices. Gender equality is one of the 6 strategic goals that we here at CERB focus on. It is one of the key ingredients for effective enrollment of gender policies and workplace to ensure the workplace is inclusive and sensitized. Now, the most important element, what we feel is about gender being for an inclusive work environment is to ensure that the workplace is gender sensitized. What is gender sensitization? In effect, gender sensitization is about raising awareness, changing stereotypes, and advocating for equal opportunity and treatment for both genders. In our webinar today, we will explore why fostering an inclusive work environment that respects gender inclusion is not just a right thing to do, but it also makes perfect business sense. Today, we'll explore the distinct challenges as well as the success stories from implementing different gender sensitization policies across different sectors, with special focus on 3 sectors, which is the FMCG, the textile sector, as well as the banking sector. I think we are all very excited that we have great panelists today who are going to share their journey from the organization, where they see how they have tailored specific strategies within the organization to help them navigate through their journey of gender equality within their workplaces. I'm just going to go ahead and introduce a very exciting panel today. So today we have with us Fatma Zubairi, who is the HR Director at Unilever Pakistan Limited since 2018. With a rich background in HR and commercial roles during a 24-year tenure at ICI Pakistan Limited, Fatma brings a deep insights into the FMCG sector. She holds an MBA from IBA, and serves as a board member at the Pakistan Society for Training and Development. We really look forward to hearing her perspective on the unique challenges that the FMCG sector faces and how Unilever has navigated through these challenges. So welcome, Fatma. So next person here we have on our webinar today is Saira Taimur Khan, who is the Chief Human Resource Officer at Interloop Limited. Saira is a seasoned HR professional with over 25 years of experience. Since joining Interloop in 2019, she has played a critical role in formalizing the company's Vision 2025 and aligning her HR initiatives with organizational goals. We will definitely benefit from her expertise within the textile sector and gather and grasp all the exciting information that she has to share with us. Last but not the least, we have been joined here by Selina Baig, the lead organizational development and inclusion at HBL, the Pakistan's leading bank, with nearly 12 years of experience in human resource, organizational development, and communication. Selina has spearheaded initiatives that promote a culture of inclusion and excellence in HBL. Her work in diversity and inclusion, especially in doubling the numbers of people with disabilities employees within her organization, and driving culture of transformation, makes her insights extremely valuable for today's discussion. So thank you all of you for joining us. So without further ado, let's get deep into our discussion first. I'm going to start with Fatma. Fatma, starting with Unilever, there's the low-hanging fruit. There's that, for targeted gender inclusion addressed in places like HR or marketing, or at least in the head office. to improve your female representation. How has Unilever approached the challenges of including women in roles in locations which are dominated by men, or in areas which is very difficult to integrate women's entry into the workplace? How have you navigated through that?
Thanks so much, Sameen, and thank you for the invite and the introduction. So I'll just dive straight into your question. So Unilever in Pakistan, globally, we've of course signed off on being on a 50-50 gender journey. And in Unilever globally, we have already achieved that target. But in Pakistan, as you can imagine, it's a bit of an uphill task, but our ambitions still remain high. And if we want to be a 50-50 gender represented organization, it's clearly that we need to, do this across all the functions. It can't be the low hanging functions only which give you the opportunity. There we are already 50-50 or even more than 50, like HR, marketing, etc. So coming to the ones which are the more tough ones, and I'll speak more specifically about sales, which we call customer development in Unilever, and supply chain, which is again a very tough one. And the signs of toughness are that if you go and check LinkedIn Insights data, it will tell you that how few women are actually even available as a part of this universe. So in supply chain, you will only find 7% of female profiles on LinkedIn, but 93% are male, which just shows us that this universe is extremely small. And imagine if you put a fit on it on the skill set, etc., that you need, it even shrinks down further. So how are we doing it? I think first and foremost, we believe in starting early and bringing them home early as well. And what do I mean by that is that we have a lot of early career programs which are very specifically targeted towards supply chain and sales professionals. And we see how do we get them into our ecosystem faster. So just to give you an example, that from the third year of supply chain students or engineers, we start going to the universities and pick up students who we feel we can coach and mentor and prepare them for the workplace. Then we go and hire our supply chain trainees from that same batch. And then we try and target them for our positions that are there within the organization. Similarly, we do the same thing for sales. So we simply call it start early and bring them home early is one way how you can grow your base. The second thing is that, of course, you have to kind of ensure that the non-traditional roles is where you're bringing them, because if you're bringing them just on safe roles, then you won't get the critical mass. So for example, we have signed up on this policy where we say that all our factory teams, the leadership teams at our factories, will have diversity representation. So when it is there at a leadership level, automatically, it becomes easier to bring in people at the shift manager level or the factory engineer level, etc. So representation within leadership teams of diversity in these difficult roles is extremely important. Same thing in sales. We clearly earmark roles where we want to bring in females, and then we make sure that we provide them those experiences. And then it's about how do we start building the ecosystem for them. Yeah. And the ecosystem really comes by making sure that you're being bold in your decisions, not only in appointing them, but also the kind of flexibility that you provide them. So just to give you a very small example, we bring in territory managers into our sales function who are females, but many of them don't know how to drive. So we give them a driver to make sure that at least they come into the profession. Otherwise, we will not be able to get them into the profession simply because they cannot drive. Or flexibility for, say, some roles where they can work from. So if you find a good resource, say, who can do a manufacturing excellence role, and it is for one of our factories, can be based it out of a factory which is a hometown for that person. So any flexibility that you can provide in terms of the workspaces, be it to support the different life cycle, bringing them and giving them the skills and tools to advance, has allowed us. So today, for supply chain, for example, our representation is approximately 30%. For sales, it is approximately 15% in the entire sales team. But if I talk more about mid-level and above, it's 23%. So it's been a journey, but it really, really requires a whole lot of interventions and, of course, a lot of ownership from the top.
Wow, very, very exciting. I mean, I've got sold on the numbers of 7% was the initial supply chain, and now you have somewhere at around 30%. Is that what you said? That's fantastic. And, just I think the leadership commitment, I think, people should not underestimate the importance of commitment from the top, the leadership buy-in, and then identifying the gaps and then going through and finding a supply. So we do hear a lot of times at these hard-to-abate sectors that there is an issue with supply. But addressing those issues the way you have is going to universities, ensuring that that is where you capture the audience. I think that is a fantastic way of ensuring regular supply to your organization. So thank you for that. Moving on to Sarah, turning to Interloop and looking into the textile sector, Interloop has been instrumental in promoting gender equality. Could you share the challenges you faced in ensuring gender representation, especially in a smaller city like Faisalabad, and how you created and maintained the pipeline for gender inclusion?
Okay, so thank you so much, Sameen, for inviting me on this forum, and I'd love to share some of the experiences that Interloop has had. And you'll be surprised to know that even though we are based in Faisalabad, however, we deeply believe in having women at all levels in the organization, especially in decision-making roles. And recently, we increased the representation of women at the board level. So at the company board level, we have a whopping 44% representation of women, which is one of the largest globally as well. So we believe that the change starts at the top. So that's one of the steps that we took. Then at our leadership team level, we have 25% representation of women, with two of our women out of that are in sales. So our chief marketing officer is a lady, and our sales is also a woman. But it's important that not only at these leadership levels, it's also important because we are a manufacturing organization, and we have several plants all across Faisalabad. We have increased the number of women in the supervisory cadre as well. Because we feel that when we put these women in these leadership roles, or at least roles where they can influence decision making and influence how women feel included or empowered to do their jobs, then is actually when you make a difference. So that's one of the strategies. So women, when they're women supervisors on the factory floors, we face less harassment. There are more decisions that are taken in favor of women as well to make them feel included. The second thing that we did is that without including that whopping 88% of men, or in our case about 86% of women in the of men in the organization, you can't really bring around that change. So we went about a very big event drive and with the men, and we also put in programs where they became champions of change, and they started bringing about that change in their areas of influence. So even while sitting in Faisalabad, I would say we are way ahead in terms of inclusivity, and in terms of bringing women into decision making roles at all levels in the organization. And as Fatma said, Hamari we have same strategy. We have a very huge graduate intake program every year, in which we have MTOs and we have graduate trainee engineers. So because we are a manufacturing organization, we need a lot of kids. So we induct a lot of girls. Our mandatory intake is 50% women. And 50% of engineers are hired from, National Textile University, from NET, from GIK, and they are trained in trades such as fabric dyeing, knitting technical. So, these are all roles that are not very conventional roles, and traditionally women have been barred from performing these jobs, but there's a change now, and induct more and more women in these roles. And I'm happy to say that we are grooming them for middle management and then for senior management. But to make them succeed, there has to be an entire ecosystem around it. So mentoring programs, along with training them how to become effective is very important. So these are some of the steps that we've taken in Faisalabad. We've also worked on a program which is called a Safe Mobility Program. We call it Women on Wheels. So we haven't given them drivers, but we've given them motorbikes. So there's a program called Women on Wheels that we do with the Salim Sufi Foundation, in which we have trained over 1,000 women in how to ride a motorbike along with safety guidelines, and then we give them these motorbikes on soft loans. So if you come to Faisalabad, you'll see quite a few of them, just motoring around the whole place. So that in itself is a big change.
Thank you so much for that, Sarah. It's fantastic. I mean, from 44%, I mean, where do I even start? 44% women in the boardroom and 25% in leadership, ensuring that the champions will change from the leadership. But actually, the most exciting thing is the women on wheels. I mean, that is phenomenal because, not only is it exciting to see women using, motorbikes, which predominantly is the main dominated mode of transport, but transportation remains the single biggest hurdle for women's accessibility to workspace. And if you manage to, create that, create that linkages or reduce that barrier, that's absolutely fantastic. So really interesting to hear all of that. Now I'll move on to Selena. Selena, moving to the banking sector, could you still discuss the strategy HBL has implemented to promote women into leadership role within this traditionally male-dominated sector? Additionally, how do you address gender biases that might affect women's career advancement? Because, traditionally the flexibility and the work hours in the banking sectors were like really long. So how has HBL managed to change that mindset?
Thank you so much for having me, Sameen. I think this is a fantastic panel to be a part of. Great learning for me as well. All right, so just to give you a little bit of a background on HBL's journey thus far. It's important to understand that even today, as I speak very proudly, that we have a close to 22% female representation in the workforce. We started off with 3% back in 2003. And we can see it's taken us somewhere around 20 years to reach where we are today. So I think at HBL, we definitively understand that this is going to be a slow, gradual process, but we have to remain at it. So there are a lot of things that we as part of our strategy, of course, embed just to kind of further the agenda of gender diversity and, curbing those biases at the onset. Now, I think Fatima spoke about this as well. The endorsement has to come from the top. So our board is absolutely driven by this agenda and they really closely monitor it. So gender diversity, or DEI in effect, is something that's really close to the board's heart, and they're really at it when it comes to progress. As far as our leaders are concerned, all of our leadership members are generally the first people to get any kind of training on DEI, whether it's gender smart banking, gender sensitizations of any sort, including unconscious biases. So we start really from the top because they need to really understand the intricacies of diversity as an entire strategic program, really. Then in 2018, so these are some of the things that have really helped us drive the agenda. In 2018, we also realized that we needed a member body of sorts that could really drive the agenda, because in pockets, there's a lot of work that happens in an organization on DEI, but HBL, with the size and scale that we are, close to 17,000 permanent employees, not easy. So a diversity council was formed, wherein we have leaders, female and male leaders, who we meet every quarter, report back the progress. There are stringent targets, functional level pay on what and how many women have we hired across their respective functions. So there's that kind of functional ownership. And somebody, I think, Sarah, you spoke about having male champions. We have launched a DEI champions program as well at HBL, where the champion is not just a woman, but a passionate human being. That's the criteria. And that is a male and a woman as well. So there's that ownership of driving the DEI agenda now at that functional level without HR having to run around everybody and get that momentum going. That's really helped us. Of course, in addition to that, we have a leadership excellence program that's training women leaders for the future, how we want to see the future leaders of HBL. So embedding in them leadership competencies that we think are going to be crucial to the future of how work becomes as we go. I think all of these little things, along with mentorship programs, many other enablers. Also, you spoke about long work hours. So we have a flexible work arrangement policy wherein, I can have a compressed work week. I'm working from home right now. I'm based in Karachi, but working from Islamabad, from my parents' home as I speak. So all of those things really do help. And I think that has translated into successes like I think Saira again spoke about having women in those influential roles. So we have, for example, Fauzia Janjua, who is leading the branch operations unit at HBL. That's around 7,000 people just within that function. So you can kind of get a sense of her span of control and how much DEI and that mindset shift she can create within her department division. We have Saima leading corporate banking. We have Sana leading head OD talent agility. So a lot of women leading a lot of roles. Also, we're now bringing in women into these roles which are otherwise associated with men only. For example, very recently we hired a premises security officer, a first female to be onboarded as a premises security officer for HBL. We hired a first agri-finance officer in Hunza. That's breaking stereotypes. So yeah, a lot of those little steps collectively and of course in a very continued manner have been bringing about some change for us. But we're ready for the journey. We understand it's not a sprint, it's a marathon.
Thank you so much for that, Selena. I think the most important part that you mentioned was the fact that, it is a slow process. It will take time. So a lot of organizations, the mistake that they do is they come in with like really aggressive plans and ideas, but they don't follow through because you see, you've got to take baby steps and then constant monitoring and target setting and resetting. I mean, if you set a target by the end of the year, we want 50% more women, that's not going to happen. You need to identify the problems and then the target, you set smaller targets for yourself so that they're achievable and then they're there in the long run, because you're right, it is not a sprint but rather a marathon that you need to be running, and then curbing those biases. It doesn't, that's why we say sensitization is a process. It is a constant reinforcement of doing away with your preconceived notions and biases and reintroducing ideas of how the culture is changing and evolving, be more accepting and tolerant. So thank you for that. Fatma, now coming back to you all over again. In terms of, whenever I keep on talking about in diversity, and I say, inclusion is diversity does not automatically ensure inclusion. Inclusion in itself is the most important, probably, element of ensuring gender equality within any organization. Could you, talk about a bit more on like challenges specific to the FMCG sector, maybe, sector in implementing gender sensitization programs, and how has Unilever, created a space, especially as you talked about the supply chain that is an area that requires possibly a little bit more innovative ways of introducing women into the workspaces. So what has happened there?
Yeah, cool. I think that's a great question. I think it's very easy to say that, we've got gender sensitization programs, etc. But the question is, how successful are those? And how much are people attending those programs? And how much are they listening to what needs to be done over there? And I think that's the one that over a period of time we've been trying to crack. So just to give you an example, and I'm sure in every organization, first and foremost, you have to have a whole governance mechanism around managing, any challenges that women face related to, harassment, relating to any kind of biasness, belonging to respect, dignity, fair treatment, and every organization should have very clear policies on that, which we do, because those become your pivots, or that's where your value or belief system is driven from. Then you create a lot of education around those policies, and typically you have a committee which also spearheads or ensures the right kind of a execution of those policies. So that's the first and the most important thing to have whenever we talk about any kind of gender representation Do you have that framework in place? And we have very, very clear, gender supportive policies, sexual harassment policy, and a very clear, business, integrity committee, which comes into play whenever we feel that any of those norms are being violated. But the challenge is that not too many people, like these kind of programs that we do on gender sensitization. First and foremost, they tell us that why are you telling us to do these things, or why are you giving us these trainings? We already know about it. But it's only when we come across these cases and we bring them to life do we realize that they really don't know about it. Comprehension is sometimes a challenge, and I think cultural acceptance and adjustment is also a challenge. So what have we done differently in Unilever? I think what we have first and foremost is a very, very rigorous kind of a training program, which is very, very different for different people. So we do a gender sensitization training for our mid-level and above managers, which is all about unstereotyping the mind, which is all about understanding your biases. Where are they coming from? How do you make your biases your friend and then work on them? And these are some very difficult conversations, because you are actually telling people that this is what happens, and getting them to reflect that yes, I do get into that state of mind, because just the way you mentioned, Sameen, that inclusion is a mindset change. Yeah, it requires a mindset change, and hence training is a very, very, very integral component of it. So one gender sensitization training we do for a mid-level and above. We have a unstereotyping the mind training, which we also do regularly, and that happens more at the top level, which is again about how we identify with our biases, how do we make sure that we are creating an inclusive culture as a leader. The third thing that we do, which is a training which we call managing diverse teams, and that's very interesting because every time we do this training, we talk about the needs and challenges of a diverse team, which also, by the way, includes persons with disabilities, etc. And how you as a leader, again, may not be knowledgeable about what's required, but how do you actually create a team which feels that, not only diversity as in demographics, but also different mindsets and different point of views can come into play. And we use a terminology which is called psychological safety, which is if people have the psychological safety, they will be very open to bringing in those different ideas and different mindsets to play. So these three big form of trainings we have at different levels in the organization, along with all the normal trainings that we do on policies. And one interesting thing, because you mentioned what's an innovative thing that we do a lot of role plays. Yeah. So cases which come out of our BI committees, which are more gender related, we usually have these town hall meetings and we actually role play these cases. And of course we do it with a bit of humor. So most of the times people think that we are making that laugh, but then someone from the leadership team, and usually myself or the CEO, actually comes up and says that, it's very easy to laugh, but actually these cases are all from within our organization. So while we feel that this is an evolved workplace, if we are finding it here, imagine what is happening. And more importantly, very recently, what we've also started doing is having very open panel discussions where the head of the BI committee, myself, a global representative from the BI team, and my CEO, we sit and we talk about the cases that we have seen and dealt with in the organization without giving any names, but reflecting on what were the learnings, what were the actions that we took. And I think when you start sharing these stats and what doing wrong and being biased can do, I think the sensitization slowly and slowly starts creeping within the organization. This for me was a real shocker because I thought panel discussions is going to make people uncomfortable. But I think it was a penny drop moment for many people sitting in the audience when they saw us as a leadership team talk so openly about it and actually telling them to embrace it. And then we drum and repeat it with a lot of training and with a lot of pledges that we take so that tomorrow we also have a trackable accountability mechanism.
That, that's That's fantastic because I think really it comes down to, as you said, that, the reflection and the sharing part, it really makes all the difference because, when you have these anti-harassment policies, accountability, that's very important that, the turnaround time for any harassment issue that has gone in, but most of them are anonymous, you may not feel confident enough to talk about the issue that you're facing, but if it's in a panel discussion, also a role play, somebody's talking about something that is happening and addressing them as, a wrong, conduct. And so you feel like, oh, you can talk about your problems, you can talk about your issues because the management is so open and obviously receptive to all of these needs and requirements. So it's easy, policy on paper is very different from the policy when it's spoken out and is discussed in Turkey. So we need to make these conversations more open and really more comfortable for people to come up and speak about these issues that they face, So
Actually,
coming to
Sameen,
Sarah, thank you for that, Fatma.
sorry, if I can
Yes.
just come in. You're spot on correct. We need to make these sensitization trainings less innocuous for people because they come in with this thing that, oh my God, they're going to say that we are like this, men are like this. But when you deal it with a very, very neutral way and you make it very soft for people to understand, I feel the impact is far more deep reaching.
Yes, and usually it starts off with an attack that men versus women. That you start off with a conversation that it's not an attack. It's not men versus women. It is just generally creating a conducive work environment. I think that is probably the first step to it. So thank you for that. Sarah, moving on to you. The study, there's a study like PwC published a study back in where they did research with a lot of private sector companies in Pakistan. We highlighted the major barrier for women working in a, for women not being able to work, not being present in the workforce is notably the lack of transportation and childcare. You have obviously already talked about your, the transportation issue that you have addressed through the motorbikes, but how has Interloop tackled these issues like family-friendly policies, for example, for women, for the career advancement of women? Because the career life cycle and your personal life cycle sort of interjects, and we know a lot of women sort of leave the workspaces when they get married and have children. How has Interloop managed to create that pipeline?
So you have to understand that at Interloop we have diverse populations in terms of women also. So we have a large number of women that come from those lower middle class or from not very educated sections because they are workers and they are working. So one thing that we have given to them as support so that they can come and they feel encouraged coming and working and in the factories is that we have given state of the art daycare centers. So each of our locations we have about 7 daycare centers in which the children of our women non-executives and our women executives are together. And we take in children from newborn infants right up to the age of 6 years. And for children who are around 3 years old, we start giving early childhood education there as well. So that's the first start, that where they don't have support systems at home to look after their children. So to enable them to be able to come to work and work with peace of mind, we've provided daycare facilities for their children as well. Uh, More for the executive women, naturally, because of their nature of jobs, also, we provide flexible working arrangements so they can work from home, they can take time off, they can, they can have flexible work hours. So women who go on maternity leave also, we give them extended maternity leave with pay, where they can stay and they can look after their baby for a longer time. If they need to work from home. Then we have recently, what we have done is for inclusivity, we have also started paternity leave for our male executives. So male non-executives ka to there was a legal thing around it now. So we thought that, for our male executives also, we want to encourage family-friendly policies. So we gave that leave out as well, which was very well received across the organization. And especially when you're going for gender sensitization, and you're talking about women all the time, then it tends to become a men versus women dialogue, which we wanted to actually tone down. So we introduced this leave as well. Also, we generally don't have men who want daycare facilities for their children, but if there's a single parent, we accommodate them as well. Then we have a number of women who are single parents. So, what we've recently started is that we've started giving them accommodation with their children. So, the child or their children can come and they can live with them. So, we have given them, small bungalow apartment with another single mother. So, that's another thing that is enabling more and more women to come forth. And, because Faisalabad is a remote location, so not we don't find too much talent. We do find local talent, but for a lot of jobs, we have to bring in women from Lahore, from Karachi, from Islamabad. So that particular factor and that particular support is very, very important for those women. Apart from that, we give talent scholarships to their children. So there is a certain quota for employee children, whether it's a female or a male, whereby, on basis of certain criteria, we give them scholarships. And so these are the kind of family-friendly policies that we are doing to our people. There's another very interesting program that we have, especially for women who have to go off work, usually for maternity reasons or to care for a loved one. We call it Interloop Reconnect policy. So the woman can, take leave with the organization, she can go off. And if she chooses to come back, let's say after a couple of years or 3 years, there's a reconnect program where we retrain her a little bit because she's joining after some time, and then we provide them jobs within the organization as per their skill set. So that is a huge advantage for women who are working in Interloop, that they can reconnect back to the workplace anytime that they want to.
Thank you so much for that. And then I think this returnship program, I also joined back work in this whole returnship program. I think that's fantastic because a lot of women, for whatever reason, do leave their work. And there was this huge percentage of population women when the they grow up and they want to join back into work. 10 years ago or 5 years ago, there was not a lot of acceptability. Now you see a lot more organizations being open to that talent, and that talent is, as I speak for myself, it's a great talent for organizations to really capture into the market. But along with this whole policy of I think for you to have an effective and efficient workforce, they need to have systems in place for them to have. And the family-friendly policies are not only catered for women alone, it is also for the men. And as you said, you've given paternity leave that may in an organization allow that his wife to then go back to work earlier as well. So that sort of that support system is there
Absolutely.
as well.
Share just
And
one small thing on gender sensitization and on the power of training. So until and unless you can run a lot of training program across the organization, but if there is no heart and mind connect, then they're just training programs. So for people that are working on our floors, you have to understand there are a lot of men, and they're from lower income households, so they have very set mindsets about women in the workplace, and there is a major pushback. The women are getting favored across the organization. So we have started this program, which we are calling respectful workplaces, and we have partnered with Mehergarh on that, where we just go to the floor, meet those men and women mixed, and she talks about a concept called tiya sanjiyan. Women या बेटियां सबकी एक जैसी होती हैं. So we are appealing to their emotional side, and once you make that connect, it's very effective.
Thank you so much for that, because I think that is also very important. I mean, I myself do a lot of sensitization training, and there's a lot of pushback. And sometimes the pushback actually surprisingly comes from people you wouldn't expect the pushback. As Fatma also mentioned that, sometimes you would think that it doesn't happen in your head offices, where you think that organized people are more sensitized to a work environment. You've created that culture, but inside the mindset, when you dig deep and when there's sort of statements that come through, when you do that discussion, what comes through it's these sort of sessions are very, very important for any organizations to really go through and have these communications and at all levels. But the pushback, comes from every side. I think Selena has rejoined us. Are you there, Selena? You might have a next question for you.
Absolutely. I apologize. My
No, it's fine.
electricity went and then everything was just reconnecting.
So, listen,
Absolutely.
I'm very wary of technology as well. Listen, but so I mean, so Selena, coming to you,
Yeah,
State Bank of Pakistan has regulated the fact that gender sensitization training has become mandatory for your organization for all banks because they want to increase the customer, not just the employee, but also women representation in as a customer base, and they realize that you can't have one without the other. I mean, to considering the customer stuff, service focus of banking, how a gender sensitization will improve the service delivery and help reduce the gender bias also in the customer interaction. I mean, I'm sure there's a linkage with that as well. Can you
absolutely.
elaborate a bit on it and give some examples?
Absolutely. So I think both Fatima and Saira have spoken at length about how important it is for the mindset to shift to really bring about any kind of change, particularly gender diversity. So I think a few things have been really crucial for HBL in terms of its products and services offerings. And I think kudos to State Bank actually. The fact that it's really progressive in its policies, and we've seen that it's really making sure that the financial institutes work on financial inclusion of women as well as financial inclusion of persons with disabilities. So really, that's a very progressive step that we've taken. Um, Now, when we're talking about products and services from the lens of HBL particularly, let me just quickly first set a relevant example for you of a product that's made for women at HBL, and that is HBL Nisa. And I'm hoping some of you might have used it at some point in your life. So now HBL Nisa was launched in 2016. And of course, it's intended to be a female-only product and also become a catalyst for really financial inclusion of the unbanked women within Pakistan, right? But if I were to just give you a little bit of a sense of the gender ratio of HBL at that point in time, we were some 84% males and just a 16% women. So I think there was a lot of clarity that we first needed to internally change that mindset, and embed that essence of gender diversity, that it's not just a woman's agenda at the end of the day. So, going forward, we kind of had that diversity council set up in 2018, but also we took support of British international investment. And I think that was a really a game changer for us, so to say. How? Because we really embarked with them upon a gender action plan, a very ambitious one, that basically trained our leaders, set targets for different functions. And even our CEO and the chairman were involved in that whole action plan program and rollout. And I think by the end of it, there was a lot more cultural sensitization, because through those programs, we were able to leverage technology and then also create pocket-sized e-learnings for our staff. Because at the end of the day, we are a huge organization. So that was one very interesting thing that we embarked upon and strategically kind of changed how we looked at our customers as well. So that's one thing. A few other things that I think have been very, very instrumental for us, in addition to the e-learnings that we do, if I were to just give you a count of the number of employees who embarked on some kind of gender science sensitization training, that's upwards of 14,000 human beings. That means a lot of our male population is also trained on the importance of gender diversity and the little nuances that we sometimes overlook. And I think in our journeys of DEI, we learn how some of the little things that we otherwise don't even pay any heed to are extremely important from that gender and inclusion lens. So of course, all of that. And because it's mandated by State Bank, we now have gender champions, which are in addition to our DEI champions, upwards of 1,100 at strategic customer touchpoints, helping these women become, banked population of the country. So it's really work that's being done on a national scale, if you were to look at it. And through these and a few, I think many other enablers, and I could go on, but then of course there's a time limit to how much we can say here. It's all contributed in a manner that gender has not just become a NISA essence, HBL NISA's essence. And I think I'll quote some numbers to just give you a sense of this. Of course, NISA in itself, just in 2023, we opened 150,000 new accounts. So we've crossed 1 million women accounts. That's one. But then there's they spill over into every other product and service offering that we have. For example, we've given out 500 million loans to women-led businesses. That's just within 2023 that I'm talking about. We've onboarded more than 1,600 Connect women agents across Pakistan. And these are mostly in small rural populations as well. We've covered approximately 1 billion female beneficiaries through our BISP program. And if you've seen some of our adverts in TVCs, even a consumer agribusiness or any other business that we have, even our communication campaigns, anything that we advertise also has that lens of gender embedded into its DNA. The Nani Kasan TVCs, the Ugly Nasal TVCs, they're all endorsing for your female child's education. So, all of those things, of course, are very internal looking and helping you with your business, but we're also going outside our boundaries. You've heard of She's Next, I'm hoping. You've heard of She Loves Tech. So we're trying to help outside the boundaries of HBL, female entrepreneurs make their mark, expand on their businesses. I don't know if you know about this female archer who has a visual disability. Her name is Bakhtawer, I believe. We've also sponsored her as part of the World Games. So putting Pakistan on the map through inclusion and that essence of it, and outside our boundaries. I think all of that really helps change the mindset also.
Thank you so much for that. I think end of the day, it really comes down to what makes, has to resonate with the makes business sense. We can sell this argument, gender inclusion, it's a better thing to do and it's the right thing to do. But really when it comes to businesses, when you're selling to the businesses, you have to tell them, okay, it is the good thing or the better practices, but also it makes complete business sense. And I think what you just shared is getting there. I think State Bank really got it right. They said, women, I think the women participation, there's barely any representation of women holding bank accounts. So I think they identified that the lack of women getting bank accounts was also to do with when a woman enters bank, it is a very male-centric space, so a lot of women would not feel comfortable being into that space. So that was a big issue that they tried to resolve. I think coming to Fatma, I think I would also want you to share, I think we've talked about the good practices and all of that, but really comes down to, how do you think your business has improved from having more women? Talk about diversity and inclusion. We talked about, different processes of sensitization. But a lot of pushback comes from that, it's all an expensive process, giving them flexibility or giving them a daycare facility or transportation and, training and all of that requires a lot of thought process and investment into having, creating that pipeline for women. So, could you share with us really how including those women into your business had created a better business sense for you?
So, Sameen, I'll be very honest. I feel a bit upset when people actually say what's the business case for bringing women into the workplace, because nobody asks for a business case to bring men into the workplace. And why do we have to always justify, okay, oh, there is a business case for bringing women into the workplace? I always say that we are just making up for lost time. Yeah, I think this is something that had to be a normal practice for a very long time. And I think as societies, we've just failed, as corporates, we've just failed not to provide that level playing field, for women to come in as openly as men would come in. And I'm happy that as a country and, as a corporate citizen, we are now making those headways. But I mean, there is a lot available, on the internet, which talks about the business case for gender diversity. So I don't think I'm going to go into this. I always say that I cannot imagine an all-male workplace. It would be very different. It would be cold. It would be not as exciting. It would definitely not bring skill sets, which women definitely do bring. I see so much creativity coming into the workplace. I see so much good management. I see such strong work ethics that women bring into the workplace. And most importantly, I think the EQ element, which really gets balanced out at the workplace, is what women really bring. So I don't think we need to justify the business case for that. But honestly speaking, the shift that we see, in our business results, the shift that, and there's again a lot of data available on that on the internet. So the business case is, I think, clearly justifiable. For us, I think it's the products we sell. Unilever's portfolio is all about, home products, which we all identify with. And I cannot imagine, building a strategy without the right representation, on all the products that we sell. So for us, besides just the fact that, there is a clear, dividend that comes with a diverse inclusion of competencies, which are very, very strongly hinged on women, what they bring to the workplace. It makes clear business case also because of the portfolio that we represent. And that's where the difference comes. But the difference also comes in the culture that we have, which clearly makes it more, more desirable for people because it's a very balanced culture. And I think the other thing that in Unilever we always measure is, are we really improving the living wage or the ability of the country, to increase employment. And I think that's another very big dimension which comes into play. And I think clearly there is a give back to the society and just not to the company with better representation.
Thank you so much for that. And I think that was really, really important that you mentioned, and I agree with you 100% that, there's historical disadvantage. You have to bridge that gap. It's not about gender equality, gender equity. Women have been at a disadvantage, and it's about time that you bring them up to pace. And yeah, there's a bit cost involved to it, but it's going to change in the long run. It will all balance off. So, moving on to the last question, if anybody has something to share, but Sarah, I would also just want to just ask, when you, especially in the, in Faisalabad, especially with your textile sector, and I'm talking specifically in your factory settings, how do you think that, doing regular sensitization sessions, do you think that has helped create that change in environment, or do you think that, just having that larger board level commitment is enough? I mean, do you think that that constant reinforcement, and I do believe needs to be at every level, but at least at the factory level, what changes have you seen in your own organization over the years?
So I'll be honest that when we started out, I think we faced a major pushback because, as I said, it's a patriarchal culture, concept of bringing in so many women and also giving them, some sort of a special or preferential treatment was something that's unheard of. But it's the push from the top is extremely important. It makes a lot of difference, but it's not the only thing that you need. So I think Fatma mentioned a strong governance mechanism is extremely important. That worked out very well for us. And if you ask me now that out of everything that you've done, what about the major change? I think it's the governance mechanism that we put into place. So we put in a very strong sexual harassment policy. We put very, very senior people on our inquiry committees. We made very strong examples out of people who follow those policies. So there's a zero tolerance for sexual harassment at Interloop, and we actually did that in letter and in spirit. So that made a huge difference. Gender sensitization workshops or learning, I think it's a continuous process. It needs to keep on happening until the time that you have said it enough times for people to start believing it. So it's like, neural linguistic programming. So once, so you'll, every time you repeat them, you'll get more people who will jump on the ship. So it's a lengthy process, and but it was slower because of we have societal barriers. But in Interloop itself, because the culture is so different and because it's being driven from the top, It's made a lot of difference. I've really, in the 4.5 years that I've been here, I've actually seen the change happen. We are still on our way, and I think very important mixture of learning as well as governance, as well as the drive from the top and from every side has made that difference. And men joining in allyship was key in all this. I'm sorry, my alarm is ringing, so I think I should go on mute.
Right. I think we're also about to wrap up. We have some very interesting questions, and I don't think we have time to go through all of them. But one comment that somebody had mentioned that there's lack of women uh, which there needs to be an area of allyship. She called an allyship or women in leadership, like collaboration where a lot of women can come and be part of that collaboration where they learn from women in leadership, sort of help them get motivated, as well as get some she said that you should have a support system, basically, like I think I hope your organizations have that, but I think I think CERB should look into developing a platform where we have, women in leadership come in and have a talk with or other employees, sort of motivating women and showing them the direction and joining the platform, becoming more empowered. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining in today, and thank you thank you to all my panelists for coming here and sharing with us very, very exciting things that your organizations are doing. And I think a lot of companies can learn from all the different practices that you all you have in your organizations. So thank you so much for your time. And I hope this is also exciting for you guys as well. I think we can go on talking about this for a very long time, but we'll call it a day today. Thank you so much.